Joe Gordon. Real quick questions. Back to the project. Number one, you mentioned that Lilly Lake is a depressed lake. We love this lake. We've been here for a few years, and one of the reasons why we picked Lilly Lake, it's beautiful, it's clean, it's got great fishing. When we first came here, it was one of the very few lakes in the area when there was flooding around that had no wake. That did have a wake. There was absolutely no wake. And we enjoyed that. We enjoyed the water sports. My main question is, of all the lakes in the area, don't most of them have an outlet where the health of the lake is preserved, bacteria count is lower, fish are healthier? I mean, isn't this, and I certainly, I trust what everyone here is saying who's been here for years. There was a natural outlet, there was the culvert. Shouldn't we just put that back in? And it's just better for the health, the overall health of the lake, beyond even the no wake and all that, all of those other issues?
So that simply put is, if you look at a solution here, put a culvert under here, at some point we're putting a overflow elevation near the lake, so the lake's going to get to a level and then go out. And that's the question, is at what level do we allow the lake to build up to before it starts going out? Is it up here, or is it closer to the ordinary high water mark? Right now we're about in here.
How high is it now?
We're about 758.5, give or take, according to Bill's readings.
Harvey Alter, 3002 80th Street. If you go down that road, no pun intended, is the culvert controlled manually or no?
No,
The watermark then goes on.
the culvert would be at an elevation here that would allow a gentle slope from this point to here and to drain to the south. Here is where your regulatory device is. That's where we're going to set some overflow weir, and the water can't get out of the lake until it overtops that. So that's the question, is where do you want that? I mean, the DNR will allow us with minimal permitting to put it above the ordinary high water, because that preserves what they characterize as the normal fluctuation of the lake. If everyone thinks, no, we'd rather have a higher level, that's entirely up to you. We can put it up here if you want, you know, but you know, all I'm saying is, regulatory wise, anything above this red line, pretty easy project.
What's the level now versus the high water?
Right now we're at about 758.5, so we're about 7 inches under what the high was.
7 inches.
Lower.
Right here.
Hi,
Okay, go ahead.
my name is Pat Kisner, and I've been here since 1964. My husband was here since 1959. You have a number of people here that were just born and raised here, and they know what this lake is. I helped to serve on the early dredging committee. If you go back and pull those records, you will find almost every one of your answers, and you'll find that natural outlet, which has been built, part of it has been built on. And it seems to me, and Mr. Roth will probably confirm it, that just by going back and finding that culvert could eliminate 80% of the problem. You really don't have a problem. You're having people say they're losing lake frontage and are losing their walls are being bothered, but those items were put there. They weren't there when they bought their homes. And we can't put up with people that have made mistakes and doing things, and it's I'm not saying this to be mean, but it's your problem, not our problem. And many of us that are the lakefront property owners paid extra assessments to have our lake dredged, and we're at a point now, it is not right that that lake was closed down. If there was anything that should have been closed down, if you were concerned, would be the liability of having the beach open. That is the only thing that you should have worried about. Anybody that was dumb enough to bring their children to a lake, to a beach that they could see it could be dangerous because the water is high and there is is water coming back against that public beach should be condemned for making their own mistake of not belonging on that beach. But you're playing with Mother Nature, and we have a pristine lake. It's always been a pristine lake, and we were knowing when we did our dredging project that there was a really good reason the way they did the project, because the lake was so pristine. And I worry too, if you put in a not natural outlet source, that you'll have backwash, and then you'll be polluting our lake. Now do we want a lake that's polluted?
I'm
Let it
sorry,
look like the old Lilly Lake in Illinois. We'll have scum across the entire water.
You were willing to play with Mother Nature when you dredged the lake. We have another problem now, and you did a good job. I've heard the history of the dredging and everything. But now we have another problem that we need to solve. And it's not dredging, but I do believe that we should look into this project, and because that was where the natural outlet was, and pursue this to solve everyone's problem. We all have different areas.
And I think you probably won't have these kind of meetings where people are going back in time.
Here.
I move that we.
Go ahead.
I agree with that. It seems to me that the question is at what level? So I propose that we should have it set at 758 feet.
What is it right now?
758 is here. Right now, you're about 6 inches higher.
Has anybody done any research on where we're proposing to put the water? You said it was about 2 feet lower? Is that about
Yes,
right?
yeah,
Has that area fluctuated in height? What happens if we did make this proposal happen, and then that water is higher than Lilly Lake, and you have an imbalance of ecosystem, that now you have a potential swamp area coming back into Lilly Lake with all the bacteria and everything else that might
It's a backwash.
be,
That's a great
might
question.
happen. We're not, I think we're all here in agreement, the lake is higher than typical. There are some individuals that are having some issues. Now, I've been around the lake a number of times, and I think we touched on this before. Some of what people think are seawalls are retaining walls. That's for material, soil on both sides, not water on one side. So some people may have been fooled on whatever their lakefront property was done as far as any erosion buildup that they have done. So some properties that I looked at actually were retaining walls that should have been for soil, not water. So that's almost a separate private issue. My concern is going to the swamp area, and I agree that used to be a swell there that probably went to the swamp. But if we're going to set an elevation, we have to be very careful on what that elevation is if we're going to have any concern of that swamp area coming back into Lilly Lake.
Right. So if there's the historic understanding that this once was the outlet to the lake, then that...
One of two.
Okay. Where was the other?
It was on the south side of 80th Street.
A little, I could just point over here, over in here.
Yeah.
This is the one we're talking about. This would be. Okay. So if you go back, one of the tools you can all look at is on Kenosha County. They have a website, and they have historic photos from 2015 all the way back to, I think it's 1937. All you have to do is click on each one of those years going back, and you can see how the lake evolved and developed. If you go back, this was a swamp in 1940, according to the aerial map. So I'm not here to say development happened, okay, how it all happened, I don't really care. The issue we have today is should there be a solution to regulate high water conditions here? If this is the chosen outlet, one of the things that we look at when we permit that is the gradient from here all the way to the Fox River is a downhill slope that has some effect. Will the Fox River ever get high enough to backwater all the way into here? I doubt it, but that's something the DNR would make sure of in a permitting process. They'd say, well, geez, you know, once the water gets here, it's going to backwash in the lake. Obviously, you don't want that because it can bring contaminants and other things into the lake. But the idea is, at what point do we set this crest elevation to allow it to go out? I mean, you don't want to set it low and drain the lake, You want to keep the lake at a level that everybody's happy with, and when it gets higher, it's only going to be higher for a week or two, and it's going to drain back down to some fixed level. If that's what you're after, then this route or study should be pursued, and we can come back to you with costs and things like that.
Can we take a vote on pursuing this plan?
Yes.
Well, so,
I
yeah,
think if we're gonna take a vote, that should be published, because there might be people not here that would want to be included in a vote. Nothing was told that we're gonna be voting on anything one way or the other.
it's on the agenda, that's possible action, it's on.
We're not voting to do it, we're voting to pursue the investigation.
But, I have one question. So, and back to this high water thing, and somebody made a proposal of 758 or whatever, we're at 758.5 right now, what's 6 inches high? That means, the way I've been measuring it, it's gotta stay dry for a couple more weeks to get that down.
Probably.
Okay. So, for this project you wanna do, then you would work off, that would be set at 758, is that what I'm?
Yeah. One of the gentlemen suggested that 758 might be a level that most people find is a good average on the lake, you know.
I just think, I just think, is it feasible first? So we don't get caught up stuck on what the elevation should be. Let's just find out, is it feasible to bring that culvert back and have it ran? And you can inform all of us about the different issues that we said at 755 or 758. If we start arguing about that now, we're never gonna get anywhere. I just want to hear whether or not you can do this, how it will be done, and then I think all of us will get together and talk through it.
Sure.
And I think we all agree, we all like the no wake where it is right now. We have different reasons for it, some are for it. We can eliminate all of that by determining whether or not there can be a natural runoff return to Lilly Lake.
So keep in mind, if a project is done and we set some overflow elevation, that's independent of slow no wake. They're two different things. So what I'm saying is once you set a fixed crest here, the lake's going to drain down to that in a week or two and just stay there. And if that's fine with everyone, that's fine. But you may say, well, we're going to allow it to get up to 758.5 before we close the lake to recreational activities.
That's something to decide later.
It's an independent issue.
I think we want to see the feasibility and what are you going to do specifically to look into it?
So here's in general how I would see it proceeding, is if, let's say, just for instance, the crest elevation 758, just above that red line there, the culvert down here would be set somewhere around 757. So there's about a foot of drop through the drainage swale to get to here. Just looking at the contour maps and some of the data available, it appears that water then would drain from here and continue to go to the south, eventually east, and get to the Fox River. It's a long route, but it gets there, and it's mostly a swamp complex. There is some threaded river areas through there, but the whole idea is that it's pretty flat in here, and the road right now is about 759.5, the surface of the road. So water as it is today would not drain out of the lake till we get to about here, which would be way above the July high.
Do you know what the level of the swamp is now?
About 737-ish. Or 750.
How long would it take to do that road? You said 750?
757, sorry, yeah.
How long would it take to decide?
Pardon me?
How long would it take to do a project like that?
You know, if it's just a culvert and some swale work, it could happen pretty quick, assuming the DNR is convinced that the release here has historical connotations and it always used to go there and something changed and it doesn't go there anymore. I think the argument with the DNR for permitting is much better knowing that if there's testament from people that have lived here a long time that this used to be the natural outlet or the one a little further to the west of here, maybe both of them at one time, because this marsh complex actually comes together. This and this come together and eventually goes over here into the Fox River.
Can I make a motion? Can I make a motion?
So what I'm getting at is, because it is possible action on study phase, so then if they make a motion to do that, then it would, I'm just checking here, we get down to the budget, because the study to see if this is feasible and the DNR will accept the engineering and it's all good is $27,000. We don't know, it might be cheaper. We were looking at both ways, so.
Right.
it's not-
If we're gonna discount the west option as something, let's not even waste any time in the west
So that would
option.
bring it way down.
Great, be able
Hold on, so I'm trying, you guys can all hear what I'm saying, so if we don't, we just scrap the Palmer one, we scrap it, it seems like, that seems like this would work here, and Mr. Dean, CC's, right? Yeah.
I already
It's
talked
a
to the
problem.
DNR, and they,
Hold on, so then we would be actually less than that 27.
Absolutely.
Significantly.
Right, yeah. Yeah,
So
I'd
for
say
you-
less than 20.
Less than 20.
Right.
I spoke with the DNR, they had said that going to the west here, west here, that river with the potential.
Tree.
Yeah, yes, with the trout in it, and it was their opinion.
Not like we're gonna scrap that.
Yeah, and I just want to back that. They said, I wouldn't put much effort into that. And that's all that individual had
Is it
said.
class 4 or class D or C or something, Chelsea?
Yeah, it's some level trout stream, which means it's sensitive to water.
Once you say trout insensitive, forget it.
Yes.
It's not going to happen.
I think we're past that. Yeah, that's gone.
I just wanted to put that out there.
Hey, I will say one thing. I have a house off the lake that I live in. If I don't have a public beach, I'm not gonna vote for this thing. So you've got 300 people, you've got 100 homes on the lake that have.
That paid to get it dredged.
Right, but also 200 houses that didn't. We're not the lake that paid. There's 300.
No, they didn't, that was,
It's
it's
300.
on the lakefront owners.
And also off the lakefront owners. That's my line. She had to go get the petitions to
Okay,
get signed. So
there
we're all
is,
one for all.
there is, you know, sounding like you want to get a motion out there on the floor. Now, we're just talking to Len that, you know, that will probably not exceed 20,000, so, I would put that, whoever's making the motion, that if you want to go with this, we're scrapping the Palmer Creek, going to where the culvert used to have been or whatever. We'll have to work something out with the property owner, right? That's what the motion would have to be, and, then you'll okay it in your budget. So if anybody wants to make that motion.
Before I make a vote on that, can we explain who's going to foot that bill? Where's that money coming from?
From the district, and then there's a voting thing here too.
And then if they find it feasible and this work gets done, then who pays for that? Isn't this a public lake where the state or some other agency should be kind of looking into that a little bit?
It's the Lake District.
Well, I'd like to make a comment on that. Everybody in this town benefits from the lakefront and from the lake. This should be a town-wide payment, not just the lakefront.
Right.
Well, you say that, but it should be. You know, if this goes down to a lake that cannot have all sports, your tax base is going to drop significantly. We're paying the big taxes, we should get some relief from this. We didn't bring the problem. The problem was caused by everybody permitting that house to be built, and Cook's house to be built, and Haber's house to be built. I don't know who built them, I'm sorry, don't know the name. But those are the three spots where the lake drained. And if those permits hadn't been given, we wouldn't have this problem ever. So I think that the town needs to come in on this, and I personally think somebody ought to sue the county. But that's my opinion.
Let us get this done first. We'll get this done and then sue everyone.
All right, well, here's the deal, I have to go, I have to catch a flight to go out to Buffalo, so she's gonna finish the meeting. We can take a motion to exceed 20,000.
Bill, should we just have a motion for him to give us an estimate of what that would cost? Is that reasonable? What's the cost?
No. To do that, you gotta take action at this annual meeting, so you can say something less than 20,000, whatever it's gonna cost. cost, but you can't wait to do it, you know?
What?
You have to
Maybe
approve the
what
budget
the cost
today.
would be rather than say, well, I guess it's gonna be about this much.
No more than
Not to
20,000.
Not to exceed, but you just.
Because otherwise you can't approve the budget, and you need to do that today. Yeah, then wait till next year.
So I'll propose a motion that we go ahead with this study for less than $20,000.
Yes.
I second.
No, wait, let's get this down.
Hang on, where does that money come from though?
The money.
Can we get a straight answer on
We
it?
have to have, find out where this money's coming from and who's paying for it.
It's coming out of this.
Hold on, she'll explain to you.
The money, there was two budgets proposed in what was mailed to everybody. And in this, it says, in option one, it says engineer phase, study phase, route selection, and so forth. It's not the actual construction, it's just the study. And it was 27,000. So that, if you approve this, it would drop to 20,000. And
And it may be less.
yes, and it could be less. It's not to exceed 20. So that budget, it would be option one budget, and it would come from the district. Now, just to say, I know people want the town to pay the thing. Let me tell you what happened historically with the dredging. At that point, there was federal money, state money, and then the property owners on the lake paid a portion separately as a special assessment, and then the rest of the district paid the balance. And at that point, the town, because we owned lake frontage, the public beach, paid the special assessment. So that was how the town contributed at that time.
But everyone in the township should have equal part of their benefits.
At that point, they paid, yes, the town, everybody in the town paid for that portion of the public beach.
The front.
Did we get that first motion?
What?
Somebody, is there a motion on the floor? Can somebody repeat the motion?
Right there, go ahead. Mark.
The motion was to approve the study for less than $20,000.
Not to exceed 20,000.
Second,
It's only the east portion.
Yeah, we're not even.
Finally amended, done with
Okay,
the.
there's a motion on the floor to plow the
Who
south.
seconded it?
I did. Pardon me,
There's a motion on the floor to follow the south study, not to exceed 20,000.
Shouldn't it be even less than that?
One is out, so it may be less. So the motion is on in a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay.
One thing is, several people have mentioned they have historical information about photos or lake levels or things like that. Any historic information that you have, please get to Sheila so that we can take advantage of that historical information to make the case that if this once was the outlet, we can affirm that with data and testimony and input from the people that have been here a long time. We have photos, we have things like that from years ago. I think the idea that a gentleman indicated a culvert was taken out in 1976. All right, do we have anything that says that? You know, maybe we can look back in the town board meeting minutes to find out whether there was or wasn't. I don't know, but all I'm telling you is that if you have information relative to lake levels or photos or something, if you can, get that information to Sheila.
Will they take oral history? I mean, there's a lot of people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. If we get to that point, need it. I think there's enough convincing evidence that the agencies can look back and make some determination or feasible, you know, understanding that this once was an outlet. Again, the question though is, at some point, where do we put the overflow at? You know, we could solve getting it under the road. It's where do you want the overflow to start at? Is it 758, 758 and a half? That's what we need to know.
Well, you don't need to do it now, all right? The question then becomes, is there any historical data showing where the ordinary high water mark has been in the last century? This is an arbitrary number that was given by putting in the pier last year, 2 years ago, and that's what they made. There may be a lot of other historical data showing that it was lower than that.
We can certainly ask the department how they establish it.
Well, I think that's something that should be done,
Yeah,
you know, to find out exactly where what, I've seen a lot lower than that on surveys. So, I don't know.
Again, if the ordinary high at some point years ago was lower than that, I don't know that anyone has a real problem with that. I think if the ordinary high was way up here, a lot of people have much greater concerns. So that's the question is, the low part probably isn't as controversial as where do you want that overflow to start happening?
I think the alternative additional thing is we look at, we didn't have any problems prior to house development, and those of you that are having problems, you might want to look at riprap on your shoreline. That would probably cure your problem. Like I said,
I don't think I remember coming, but I